What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and I wanted to talk about emergency funds. But before I do that, make sure you press that subscribe button. It's red, just like this. And that little bell notification so YouTube can notify you every time I post a video. Wanted to talk about emergency funds. And my current philosophy on them. So what an emergency fund is generally speaking, the financial experts, I think that most people should have between 3 to 6 months, 3 to 9 months, a year. You hear all things all over the spectrum in terms of living expenses set aside in a savings account of some sort, right? So that's not my personal philosophy. But when it comes down to, I think that there's a transition point, and also there's a risk tolerance. So you want to consider your risk tolerance. I think there's basically 3 factors that go into this: your risk tolerance, your savings rate, and your income. So we're going to touch on the first one and then get into the next 2. So your risk tolerance, right? Shit's happened with you or within your family in the past, or there's a very rigid or defined way about thinking, a defined way of thinking about life, then having 3 to 9 months worth of living expenses might be a prudent thing to do. By the way, at the end, I'll tell you exactly how I handle mine. For those of you who don't want to wait, I don't have an emergency fund. But the next is, and right, like some people go through shit, like, and they don't want to they want to reduce the little bit of risk that they think is associated without having an emergency run, right? Because shit's fucked up in their life at some point, and they feel way more comfortable with having an emergency fund. Good, kudos to them, right? They know what's up. You got to be self-aware. Your savings rate, right? If you're saving 10% or 5% of what you make, maybe it makes sense to have an emergency round, right? Like if you're making the average American household around 60 grand and you're saving, 5% or 10%, that's $6,000 a year. That's $500 a month, right? If you have an unexpected expense where it's $3,000, that's, you know what I mean? It's going to take you a few months to pay that shit off if you don't have a savings fund. So having some type of emergency fund at the lower savings rates, in my opinion, makes sense, right? I can get that. At the higher savings rate, right? If you're saving 50% of what you make and you're in the average American household that makes around $60,000, you're going to be that first one, that foundational one, right? Like your risk tolerance, right? Maybe you have kids. Maybe you're supporting your parents. Maybe there's some other factors that go into your consideration. But when you get up to that 50% and plus savings rate, it becomes more of an opportunity cost to what you can do in the market with those savings, right? If you're spending $5,000 a month, right, and you want a 6-month savings, that's $30,000 that's just sitting there that you could make money on, right? Like you can invest that, right? And you lose that money by just sitting on it in the bank, right? You make 1% or 2.5%, right, on some type of savings. Where I don't think that's necessary potentially. The third is income, right? So when you couple the first with the second and the third, right? If you have the average 60,000 and you're making 50, if you're saving 50%, right? That's $30,000 a year on a gross basis. If you are making $120,000 a year or $250,000 a year and you're saving 75% of it, I don't know. It greatly decreases the incentives to have an emergency fund, right? If you're saving, 75% of $200,000, on a gross basis, right? You're saving like 150 grand a year. I mean, if you just do the math on that, right? Like you have an emergency and it costs 10 grand, just don't save as much the next month and pay off your fucking credit card. Right? You're saving, 10,000, 12,000 bucks a month, or 11,000 bucks a month, or 10,500 bucks a month, or something like that. Like, just don't just pay. Don't save the next month and pay off your credit card. Now, how I like to handle my savings or my emergency is just like, it's actually like a hybrid. So I save, I'll have something like $1,000 or something set aside for like expenses over the next month or so. But I'd like to invest that because the last two things, well, first, all three of those, right? My risk tolerance is just me. I don't have kids to consider. My girlfriend lives in a different state. I don't have some of these other factors that other people consider. And I'm okay. Like, I will go get a job at Walmart if shit gets real fucking bad. Like, it doesn't matter to me. There's no pride associated with, like, I'll go fucking be a janitor. It really doesn't matter to me. I don't have, like, it doesn't fucking matter. I'll go do that. And once you change that perspective, at least for me, I mean, you like, how bad is it really gonna fucking get? Like, I lose my job, okay, well, I'll go work at McDonald's during the day and I'll work at Walmart at night. Like, you know what I mean? Like I already live in a small studio. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, I'm just not concerned about that at all. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be. I'm just saying for me, I'm not. My savings rate for the month of April is probably going to be 85+% or 80+%, probably around 85%. My income is going to be substantial, like, you know what I mean, well into the six figures. So having, you know what I mean, if shit gets real fucking bad and I put $10,000-$15,000 on a credit card, like, just pay it off and decrease my savings rate. So, having, you know what I mean, 1,000 or 2,000 sitting around is cool. But I think the rest of it can be better utilized on some other things that are going to yield much higher results. Not necessarily just sitting in a savings account, not earning anything, right? And also, you do have to consider your goals and objective, right? Like, clearly, if you need to buy a house in 6 months, maybe it's not a great idea to have that in investments. Where, I mean, maybe you could put it into a some type of ETF that is like a bond ETF, depending on your risk tolerance and stuff. But putting it into a super low cap, high risk index fund for international stocks might not be a good idea, depending on what your objective is. But that's my philosophy on how I take care of my emergencies. I don't think it's completely necessary to have 3 to 6 months. I think that's the opportunity cost associated with having 3 to 6 months worth of discretionary expenses put aside. It just doesn't make a ton of sense for me. Like, I think that cost is way too high. You know what I mean? To put that away and earn 1 or 2 or 2.5%, like some crazy savings rate, and you earn 3%. I don't know. That's just not worth it to me. I think I can earn more in investments, whether that's real estate or options trading or whatever it is. Anyways, if you guys want to learn more about the options trading, check out the channel, bro. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to see other videos like this in the future. Peace.